my arms are crossed, so you know I'm serious. I think part of the problem with a long distance situationship is that we actually haven't seen each other in a long time, so, you know, he doesn't realize just how, like, pretty I am. That's a joke. Even though I'm not married and I'm not even really in a relationship, my life for the past like 10 years has actually centered around men and dating and pleasing men. Like, this is basically like all I talk about lately because like I can't think about anything else. Like, I am trying so hard to think about something else, but I think I just kind of need to get it out of my system. I've like somehow fallen into like a long distance situationship. Like, how does that even happen? We started out this long distance situationship about 2 months ago, a little under 2 months ago. Immediately when this person entered my life, I could feel the gears shifting in my life. You know, I was focused on myself. I was in this period of spending a lot of time thinking about like me. I was meditating twice a day for like 20 minutes. I was reading. I was working on videos. I had multiple projects that I was thinking about, multiple things I was thinking about that did not involve any men. And I was trying to think about what the future is gonna look like for me. It's easier to do that when you don't have a man in the picture because you don't have to think, oh, well, what would he think? How can I like keep us together? The thing about dating a man is like, if you're thinking about a shared future together, you can sure as hell guarantee that like 9 times out of 10, that man is going to assume that you are going to fit into his life rather than the other way around. So that's the way that society is set up. The woman takes the man's name. You know, he is the leader. If you live in different places, you're the one who uproots your life, which is what happened to my sister. Like, it wasn't even a discussion with her husband. He is British, she's American. It was not a discussion where they would end up. It was just assumed that they would end up in the UK. And there could be a lot of reasons for this, one of which being that British citizens assume that the UK is superior in every single way. But even if it is better in every single way, which I'm not saying that it is, that doesn't necessarily mean that her quality of life isn't going to get worse. Like, being an American in the UK, while you may have some benefits, you still are not going to be able to see your family as often as your partner. You still do have the threat of like not being able to stay. Like, for example, if your partner doesn't make enough money, it could be that you will be kicked out of the country in this place where you have set up your life. And so that's a constant added level of strain that he will never have to experience, and he doesn't even really have to think about it. And honestly, it doesn't seem like he wants to think about it that much. I've never had a relationship where a man has tried to negotiate between what both of us want. Well, in my last relationship, I was dating an autistic guy. Who knows what flavor of neurodivergence I have. He insisted to me that I am also autistic. I am diagnosed with ADHD, but I could see the autism thing, but I'm not gonna claim it. But anyway, my form of neurodivergence makes it so that it's kind of hard to keep my house as organized as someone with his brand of autism would prefer. He likes having things in a certain order, and while I don't mind having things in a certain order, it is very hard for me to remember to put things back in the moment. No matter how many times my parents told me growing up, like, oh, you have to turn off the bathroom light when you leave, no matter how much I knew that it was the right thing to do, monetarily speaking, environmentally speaking, I would try, but I would always forget sometimes. That's what I have to contend with. Well, this guy, at first he was understanding. Towards the end of the relationship, he was like, you know, like, if I'm going to stay at your apartment, I kind of need it to be more to my liking. You're expecting me both to do all of the cleaning of my apartment, because he also would leave it dirtier than I left it. You're expecting me to do all of the cleaning in this apartment that already, like, it's far and beyond like any amount of cleaning that I would normally do, and I was doing it not for me but for him. But he also felt that I needed to have all these other accommodations for him, and you know, he needed my apartment to be organized a certain way, and I needed to purchase certain groceries for him. He was like, I have autism, so I really need you to accommodate me in making your apartment cleaner so that I feel less stressed out. And I was like, okay, well, cleaning my apartment and like totally developing a new system by which I clean my apartment stresses me out because it's really not easy for me to do that. He did not take into account that, you know, that was a stressor, a strain on an already strained situation for me. And he was like, oh, well, you know, I can't come over because your living situation stresses me out. It's like, you know, I only see you a few times a week now because you say that it's too stressful to hang out in my messy apartment, so I want to make it a good experience for you. It became this thing that I would do to the exclusion of other things that were actually important to me, like working on my projects, reading about things, learning languages, trying to make money, things that like actively add to my sense of self and are important for my life. Pretty recently, I have been talking to someone who ended up going on a vacation with an ex-girlfriend. He did not tell me that he was taking this vacation with an ex-girlfriend. And I was like, did you hook up with her? And he said yes. And I was like, did you think about how that would feel to me? And he was like, well, no, because we're not technically together. He said that he would have felt restricted had he not been able to hook up with his ex-girlfriend on vacation, which tells me that he prioritizes his own individual freedom over establishing a connection with me, which is good to know. No matter who the man is, even if someone knows about the patriarchy, it really, in my experience, doesn't necessarily mean that they have like actually engaged with the subject and like really understand what it means to be the one who is always thought of second. I have used this strategy of centering men in my life as a way to avoid things in my own life. At first, I was centering a man in a way that felt good to me. Throughout the day, I would just be fantasizing about like how great he was and like, you know, how perfect we were together and like listing all of the reasons why like it seemed fated. That started to be my undoing. Like I forgot who I was and I was like, oh my God, like I don't ever do anything. Like who even am I? I like really started to get kind of insecure. And then I was thinking about all of the ways that the relationship could end up failing. And I was thinking about how I should be working on my own stuff, but I'm not. And like, why am I not doing that? And why don't I feel motivated to do that? And it would always come back to this guy. And there like arose a tension in that where I was like, he like went on vacation and all of a sudden got super distant with me and I could not think about anything else other than, oh my God, like what is the reason that he's doing this? Is there like someone else? Has he just lost interest? Is it just because he's on this trip? What is the normal amount of change in communication that I should expect on a trip? Should he have communicated to me before the trip how much the communication would change? What is appropriate? I kept thinking about like what the appropriate amount to text him was and what kind of message he would want to receive and like, was I being too much? How much should I reveal? Should I express any of my discomfort? Would he find that to be too much or would he find it to be a comfort? Did he miss me too? Would telling him that I miss him be overbearing and like difficult to receive because he was kind of feeling like the relationship was moving too fast? Every text that I would send him, I had to put it through so many different filters because I was centering a man in my life and in the relationship, and it was simply bad. Do I want to center a man in my life? No, I like to think of myself as being really independent and a free thinker and stuff like that. And in a lot of ways I am, but when it comes to relationships, oh my God, I am brought to my knees. It's been like conditioned into me for some reason. I've gotten to the point with this relationship where I'm like, okay, I can see how he's like inherently flawed. No offense to him. It would be a hard road to get him to see that he wasn't considering me because he has this natural defensiveness when I point out when he's like not considering my perspective, and he's thinking about how to explain to me, maybe so I'll feel better, but also so he'll feel better because I won't be on his case as much anymore. I still am kind of like mad about the situation because like a lot of stuff kind of happened and he was extremely disappointing. I was going to London explicitly to visit him. If I meet up with him, I meet up with him. I think the problem is I just kind of need to know when to call it. Or maybe I don't need to do anything. Sometimes I wonder, I mean, even if I fall for a guy and then he doesn't, I could just take a meditative approach to it. Maybe it's not objectively good or bad. It's just an experience. Yep. Anyway, bye.